most Democrats, I think, or most Americans for that matter, when they look at Republicans who are trading in their flag lapel pins for little metal pins of AR-15s, this mass slaughter weapon of war, most Americans assume that when Republicans are doing that, wearing AR-15 pins and refusing to do anything about guns and the slaughter of our children, they're doing it because they're being paid by the NRA or they're being paid by the gun lobbies. And frankly, these Republican politicians are quite happy for you to believe that they're on the take from the NRA and the gun lobby. I mean, that's actually quite preferable in their minds to America having a conversation about what they're really doing and why they're really doing it. And what they're really doing is they're encouraging white male Americans, straight white men, to arm themselves. Because there is this movement within the GOP and certainly within the NRA. In fact, it's foundational to the NRA. It goes back to 1977 and a guy named Harlan Carter who took over the NRA in 1977. Harlan Carter, who had murdered two people of color. He killed a young 19-year-old Native American with his car, and he shot a 15-year-old Mexican in the gut with a shotgun from about 5 feet away because the kid talked back to him. I mean, this was the guy who then ran the NRA, along with the general counsel who had spent 6 years in prison for murdering his wife's mother or his girlfriend's mother. I mean, it's just like this crew of very strange people. And Wayne LaPierre and the NRA have been amplifying this racist fantasy that black people and brown people are becoming increasingly prominent in America, in American politics, in American business, in American media. You'll recall some crazed racist called into this program a couple of weeks ago and was like, "Why are there so many black people in my TV commercials?" Like, because people want to sell, because companies want to sell things. I mean, come on, give me a break. But, it's like this is what, this is what the NRA is pushing. This is that not only are black and brown people showing up, but they're doing it because there are Jews who are making it happen. Thom Steyer, Michael Bloomberg, George Soros, of course, the international Jew. And they're not bashful about saying it. They come right out and say it. In fact, Anglin, the guy who founded the Daily Stormer, the real Nazis. This was the actual Nazi newspaper in America. It still is. 5 years ago last month, Andrew Anglin wrote in the Stormer, quote, "The NRA is the country's premier pro-white and anti-Semitic organization. In fact, it is the only right-wing group of any kind in this country to have any success at all in the last 50 years. The white race in the United States has lost on," I'm quoting from the founder of the Stormer, the Nazi website, "The white race in the United States has lost on racial integration, feminism, homosexuality, abortion, prayer in schools, pornography, and immigration, but has won on one single issue, guns. And that winning is almost exclusive, is due almost exclusive to the National Rifle Association, a pro-white and anti-Jewish organization intent on protecting our guns from the gun-grabbing," and then the K-word slur for Jewish people. "It's time to put your money where your mouth is and join up with the country's single most effective pro-white organization intent on fully smashing the Jew." Now, the phrase that Anglin uses to describe Jews on that very webpage over at the Daily Stormer is, and I quote, "European-style socialists." He says he much prefers to call Jews European-style socialists. This is a phrase that in the white power communities, the white nationalist community, the Christian nationalist community, they're all kind of the same thing. This is a phrase, European-style socialists, that is code for Jews. So, Anglin publishes this thing 5 years ago, and a month later, Wayne LaPierre gives a speech in which he says, and I quote, President Trump's election, while crucial, can't turn away the wave of these new European-style socialists bearing down upon us. He then lists, Wayne LaPierre then lists the people who are trying to destroy America. Every single one of them is a Jew. Bernie Sanders, George Soros, Tom Steyer, Michael Bloomberg, Chuck Schumer. He did not name a single Christian or person of any other religion. And then LaPierre continues to cheers from the crowd. He says, history proves it. Every time in every nation in which this political disease rises to power, and you and I both know who and what he's talking about here, its citizens are repressed, their freedoms are destroyed, and their firearms are banned and confiscated. It is all backed in this country by the social engineering and the billions from people like George Soros, Michael Bloomberg, Tom Steyer, and more. I mean, don't tell me that Republicans are wearing AR-15 pins because they got a $5,000 contribution from the NRA. That's not why. They're wearing AR-15 pins because AR-15s are the most efficient weapons of war that you can buy in the United States. You can kill more people more rapidly with an AR-15 than any other thing that you can buy in the United States right now. And that's why these Republicans are wearing them as lapel pins, because they are looking forward to a race war in America. They are calling for this. Over at Fox So-Called News, frozen fish heir Tucker Carlson is talking about the great replacement theory, where wealthy Jews are moving black and brown people in to replace you, the good white people. A Facebook member had posted a quote from Herbert W. Armstrong. Herbert W. Armstrong's been dead for more than a decade now, but he was the founder of the Worldwide Church of God back in the day. He was the guy who preached at length that God wanted the races separated, and that we violated God's will when we created the Tower of Babel, and then God had to separate the races again after that, right? So there was this quote from Herbert W. Armstrong on Facebook, and I quote, this is the quote, "Race war is coming. It will be whipped into an accelerating crescendo until human blood runs like rivers." And seeing that comment, NRA board member Ted Nugent replies, "Yeah, no S word. Blacks slaughtering blacks at an unprecedented rate. Blacks killed more blacks this week than the KKK has in 50 years. And then he posts, "Obama wants a race war. Obama will go down in history as a maniac, America-hating freak." Armstrong was and continues to be, even in his, even as he's passed away, revered by the white nationalist movement. Marjorie Taylor Greene calls herself a Christian nationalist. Yes, I'm proud of this. This is what's happening. They are still animated, the NRA and these folks, this Republican base, by Harlan Carter's hatred of what he called colored people and Jews, and of course the queer community. This is their this is their thing. What they're really saying, I mean, for example, Jim Jordan is going to New York now to talk about crime in New York. Well, New York is not even in the 65 most dangerous American cities. There are 5 cities in Ohio that are, which is where Jordan is from, but New York is not one of them. But nonetheless, Jordan is going to New York to talk about crime in New York. Well, what's he actually talking about? What he means, what he's saying is, look at all those black and brown people and the European-style socialist Jews who are helping them out. That's what he's saying. As Wayne LaPierre said, after Hurricane Sandy, we saw the hellish world that the gun prohibitionists see as their utopia. Looters ran wild in South Brooklyn. And then he goes on through that. He says, the hard truth is that due to Bloomberg, Soros, and the rest of their ilk, the dangers require that we increase our presence all across the country, in Congress, the state capitals, and in your city and towns. More guns. Get ready for the race war. This is what these Republicans are pitching. Roxanne Dunbar Ortiz told the Boston Review 2 years ago that she said, I think what the NRA and Carter specifically did was simply revive something that had waned because for a moment it was no longer needed. She says slave patrols were not needed. The KKK wasn't needed because the Jim Crow state had taken on the role of racial enforcer. But in the 1960s, as that began to break down with civil rights, Carter handed to the descendants of the white settler population this tool for their empowerment, the new NRA. When Marjorie Taylor Greene talks about a national divorce, or Sharon Angle or Donald Trump talk about Second Amendment solutions, or Greg Abbott says he's going to pardon a guy who killed a BLM protester, or Ron DeSantis parades black men in shackles before the cameras for illegally voting, they're all saying the same thing. They're saying that their version of America is the America of the 1930s. The 1930s, when my grandfather added a second N to my father's last name on his birth certificate when he was born in 1931, so he wouldn't be mistaken for Jewish. That's what they're saying. They want to take America back to that time.